The Gallic Wars, fought from 58 to 50 BC, were led by the Roman general Julius Caesar against the tribes of Gaul. The Gallic, Germanic, and Brittonic tribes united to defend their territories against an aggressive Roman incursion. The conflict originated from disputes over the migration of the Helvetii, which subsequently involved neighbouring tribes and the Germanic Suebi. The tribes of Gaul were civilized and wealthy, forming what archaeologists refer to as the Latine culture. Many had interactions with Roman merchants, and some, like the Aedui, were governed by republics and had stable political alliances with Rome. In the 1st century, parts of Gaul were becoming urbanized, concentrating wealth and population centers, easing out the Roman conquest. Although the Romans considered the Gauls to be barbarians, their cities resembled those of the Mediterranean. They minted coins and traded extensively with Rome, supplying iron, grain, and many slaves. In return, the Gauls amassed considerable wealth and developed a taste for Roman wine. However, the Romans realized the Gauls were a powerful fighting force and considered some of the most barbaric tribes to be the fiercest warriors, as they were supposedly uncorrupted by Roman luxuries. Julius Caesar, a rising politician and general, was the Roman commander and main antagonist of the war. Due to the financial burdens from his consulship in 59 BC, Caesar accumulated significant debts. To bolster Rome's position among the Gauls, he paid a substantial sum to Ariovistus, king of the Suebi, to secure an alliance. Following the unexpected death of Metellus Celer, the governor of Transalpine Gaul, Caesar was awarded the province. The law granting him command extended his term as proconsul to 5 years, longer than the traditional 1-year term for consuls, allowing him to conduct a military campaign without the risk of losing command. Caesar's ambition was to conquer and plunder territories to resolve his debts. Initially, Gaul might not have been his primary target. He may have considered a campaign against the Kingdom of Dacia in the Balkans. However, a mass migration of Gallic tribes in 58 BC presented a convenient cause for war, prompting Caesar to begin his preparations. The Helvetii were a confederation of approximately 5 related Gallic tribes residing on the Swiss plateau. Facing growing pressure from Germanic tribes to the north and east, they began planning a migration around 61 BC. Their goal was to travel across Gaul to the Saintonge region in modern France, a route that would take them around the Alps and through the lands of the Aedui into the Roman province of Transalpine Gaul. When news of the migration reached Caesar, he was in Rome and quickly hurried to Transalpine Gaul. On March 28, 58 BC, the Helvetii began their migration, bringing along their entire population and livestock. To ensure the migration was irreversible, they burned their villages and supplies. Upon reaching Transalpine Gaul, where Caesar was governor, they requested permission to cross Roman lands. Caesar considered their request, but ultimately denied it. The Helvetii then turned north, completely avoiding Roman territories. Although the immediate threat to Rome appeared to be over, Caesar led his army across the border and launched an unprovoked attack on the Helvetii, initiating what became an aggressive war of expansion to further his career. The Helvetii tried to negotiate with Caesar, but on June 20th, with his supplies running low, Caesar was forced to move towards Allied territory in Bibracte. While his army had easily crossed the Saone, his supply train had not. This allowed the Helvetii to outmaneuver the Romans and gather allies from the Boii and Tulingi. They seized the opportunity to attack Caesar's rearguard at the Battle of Bibracte. The Helvetii were routed and fled, prompting the Romans to pursue the now outnumbered Boii and Tulingi back to their encampments, where they killed the fighters and slaughtered the women and children. Caesar then focused on the Germanic Suebi, whom he also aimed to conquer. The Senate had declared Ariovistus, king of the Suebi, a friend and ally of the Roman people in 59 BC. So, Caesar needed a convincing reason to justify betraying the Suebi. He found his opportunity after his victory over the Helvetii. A group of Gallic tribes congratulated him and requested a general assembly, hoping to use the Romans against other Gauls. Diviciacus, the head of the Aeduan government and spokesperson for the Gallic delegation, expressed concerns over Ariovistus's conquests and the hostages he had taken. This proposition provided an opportunity to expand Rome's borders, solidify loyalty within Caesar's army, and establish him as the commander of Rome's troops abroad. The attack by the Herudes, an apparent Suebi ally, on the Aedui, combined with reports that 100 clans of Suebi were attempting to cross the Rhine into Gaul, gave Caesar the justification he needed to wage war against Ariovistus in 58 BC. Upon learning that Ariovistus intended to seize Vesontio, the largest town of the Sequani, Caesar marched swiftly and arrived before Ariovistus. The next morning, Caesar gathered his allied troops and advanced his legions toward Ariovistus, initiating the Battle of Vosges, in which Caesar emerged victorious. In just 1 year, he had defeated 2 of Rome's most formidable enemies. After this intense campaign season, he returned to Transalpine Gaul to manage the non-military aspects of his governorship. By this time, it is likely he had already resolved to conquer all of Gaul. Caesar's stunning victories in 58 BC had unsettled the Gallic tribes. Intervening in another intra-Gallic conflict, Caesar marched against the Belgae tribal confederation, who had recently attacked a tribe allied with Rome and encountered them near Bibrax. The Belgae tried to capture the fortified main settlement of the Remi, but failed and instead raided the nearby countryside. Both sides sought to avoid battle due to supply shortages. Caesar ordered fortifications to be built, which the Belgae saw as a disadvantage. Consequently, their army disbanded, knowing they could easily reassemble later. Caesar seized the opportunity. If he could reach the men's lands before they did, he could capture them with ease. He rushed to their main settlement, now Villeneuve-Saint-Germain, and laid siege to it. The Roman siege preparations proved decisive. Grand Roman-style siege warfare was unfamiliar to the Gauls, and the strength of the Romans' preparations led the Gauls to surrender quickly. This had a ripple effect, as the nearby Bellovaci and Ambiones surrendered immediately afterwards, realizing that the Romans had defeated a powerful army without a fight. However, not all tribes were intimidated. The Nervii, allied with the Atrebates and Virimandui, planned to ambush the Romans. The ensuing Battle of the Sabes was nearly a humiliating defeat for Caesar, and the Roman victory was very hard won. The Gauls resented being forced to supply the Roman troops during the winter. When the Romans dispatched officers to requisition grain from the Veneti, a coalition of tribes in northwest Gaul, the Veneti captured the officers. This move was deliberate. The Veneti knew it would provoke Rome, and had prepared by forming alliances with the tribes of Armorica, fortifying their hilltop settlements and assembling a fleet. Although Rome was a formidable naval power in the Mediterranean, the calmer waters of the region allowed for the use of less robust ships. Nevertheless, the Romans realized that to defeat the Veneti, they would need a fleet, as many Venetic settlements were isolated and best accessed by sea. Caesar led 4 legions overland to rendezvous with his newly assembled fleet near the mouth of the Loire River. Throughout most of the campaign, the Veneti maintained the upper hand. Their ships were well adapted to the region, and when their hill forts were under siege, they could easily evacuate by sea. The less sturdy Roman fleet was largely confined to harbor during the campaign. Despite having a superior army and advanced siege equipment, the Romans made little headway. Recognizing that the campaign could not be won on land, Caesar decided to pause the operations until the seas calmed enough to make the Roman vessels more effective. Finally, the Roman fleet set sail and confronted the Venetic fleet off the coast of Brittany near Quiberon Bay. They engaged in the Battle of Morbihan, which lasted from late morning until sunset. The Romans, able to board the Venetic ships with their superior soldiers in large numbers, overwhelmed the Gauls with relative ease. Just as they had defeated Carthage's superior forces in the First Punic War using the Corvus boarding device, a simple technological advantage, the grappling hook, enabled them to overcome the more formidable Venetic fleet. Caesar concluded the campaign season by attempting to subdue the coastal tribes allied with the Veneti. However, these tribes outmaneuvered the Romans due to their superior knowledge of the heavily forested and marshy local terrain. Their strategy of withdrawing into these difficult areas allowed them to avoid battle. Realizing he would not engage the Gauls in combat, Caesar withdrew for the winter. This was a setback for Caesar, as the failure to pacify these tribes would impede his campaigns the following year. In 55 BC, Caesar's military campaigns were likely driven more by a need for prestige than by tactical necessity. largely due to his rivalry with Pompey and Crassus. While they were political allies, they were also powerful rivals, Pompey being a celebrated general and Crassus immensely wealthy. To maintain his influence in Rome, Caesar needed to keep his name in the public eye. To do this, he decided to lead his army across the Rhine and the English Channel, two feats no Roman army had accomplished before. Caesar first crossed the Rhine in response to unrest caused by Germanic and Celtic tribes. After defeating the Celtic tribes in battle, he led a swift campaign across the Rhine that lasted just 18 days, building a bridge in 10 days, and then destroying it after his mission was complete. This move was more about impressing the Romans and intimidating the Germanic tribes than achieving any lasting military objective. Next, Caesar turned his attention to Britain. His initial expedition was more of a reconnaissance mission than a full-scale invasion. Despite setbacks like his cavalry failing to cross the Channel and the strong resistance from the Britons, Caesar managed to land his troops, though he had to withdraw due to the approaching winter and lack of supplies. Historian Kate Gilliver views Caesar's actions in 55 BC as a publicity stunt aimed at boosting his prestige. His brief campaign across the Rhine and his landing in Britain were meant to show off his capabilities and intimidate potential enemies. In 54 BC, Caesar returned to Britain with a larger force and achieved more success, subduing several tribes and extracting tribute. However, his primary challenge that year was dealing with unrest in Gaul. Poor harvests and the spread of his troops across the region led to a series of revolts, most notably led by the Eburones under Ambiorix, who ambushed and wiped out a Roman legion. Caesar eventually crushed these uprisings with brutal campaigns, punishing the rebellious tribes and securing Roman control over Gaul. In 53 BC, Caesar continued to suppress unrest in Gaul with harsh measures, including a second crossing of the Rhine. His campaigns focused on demoralizing the tribes by destroying their villages and resources. Despite these efforts, resistance continued, culminating in a massive revolt led by Vercingetorix in 52 BC. Vercingetorix managed to unite the Gallic tribes against Caesar, leading to several significant battles. After suffering a rare defeat at Gergovia, Caesar regrouped and ultimately besieged Vercingetorix at Alesia. The Roman fortifications proved too strong, and Vercingetorix was forced to surrender, ending the Gallic revolt. By 51 BC, Caesar had pacified most of Gaul, though some holdouts remained. The final major resistance was crushed at the siege of Uxellodunum, where Caesar cut off the defenders' hands as a warning to others. By the end of 50 BC, all of Gaul was under Roman control, and Caesar emerged victorious, solidifying his power and reputation in Rome. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more, please subscribe and like the video. We appreciate it.